That's right, you hear the music. Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Robinson, and welcome to another exciting edition of the League Wraparound. This is the program that gets you caught up on anything and everything happening around the NFL. Coming up on this edition of the program, we'll preview the NFL playoffs divisional weekend. Also, we have some info on the NFL international games, and we also have some info on some coaches that are no longer with their teams, and also some info about a coach that may be trying his luck in the National Football League. And, of course, we have your picks and so much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. As always, before we preview divisional weekend, let's recap what happened during Wild Card weekend in the NFL. We had the Los Angeles Chargers take on the Houston Texans. The Texans would go on to beat the Chargers 32-12. The Baltimore Ravens would go on to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 28-14. The Buffalo Bills took care of the Denver Broncos 31-7. The Philadelphia Eagles beat the Green Bay Packers 22-10. What a performance it was late in the game by quarterback Jaden Daniels as the Washington Commanders would beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after a game-winning field goal from Zane Gonzalez with the doink to get the victory for the Commanders. Washington beats Tampa Bay 23-20. And then Monday night, we had the Minnesota Vikings take on the Los Angeles Rams. Dominating performance by the Rams. LA would win 27-9. And those are your scores as a recap from Wild Card weekend in the NFL. As always, I like to start off with my top three storylines. I like to start off talking about the Washington Commanders. You talk about one of the feel-good stories of this 2024-2025 NFL season, the Washington Commanders is definitely at the top of the list. Quarterback Jaden Daniels is a star, and he is on the verge of becoming a superstar. It's so wonderful to see teams like the Cowboys and the 49ers and the Steelers and the Dolphins. Those teams, it's always great to see them winning. We've seen them win for quite some time. Also, teams like the New York Giants, we've seen those teams win consistently, as recent as the Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots. But it's always fun to get Washington back in the picture. And it's just been a fun ride this season, and especially continuing into the playoffs. We saw Jaden Daniels during the regular season display poise, confidence, being cool under pressure. And we saw that in Washington's victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Zane Gonzalez getting the game-winning field goal, with getting the doink, hitting the upright, and then going in to get the victory. But not just with Jaden Daniels, but also the supporting cast as well, with Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, also Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, who's found the fountain of youth in his first year in Washington. Also, Bobby Wagner, he's found the fountain of youth in Washington as well on the defensive side. Also helping out defensively, Frankie Louvu. You've got De'Ami Brown has been a nice receiver for the Commanders as well. Also, Olamide Zaccheaus. Washington has had an amazing season this year. And as I stated earlier, Jaden Daniels is a star. And it won't be too long before he becomes a superstar. Dan Quinn definitely deserves Coach of the Year honors. Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, those gentlemen have done a great job this first year with ownership. And Doug Williams, been a director of player personnel. He's done his part as well. But, man, the Washington Commanders, wow. Yeah, everybody's taking command, not just in D.C., but really in the DMV and Commanders fans worldwide. And the Detroit Lions, they may have to be scared on this one, man, because Washington, they're not playing, and they have nothing to lose. And certainly this is a team that has eyes and ears of everyone all over the world during this NFL season. And the NFC East is going to be an interesting division for the next decade and a half, where you have the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, and now with the resurgence of the Washington franchise, it's going to be fun for quite some time. My next storyline is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. So the Rams has so much to play for. It was an emotional night for them. You know, on the eve of, in the midst of the ongoing wildfires that are taking place in the Los Angeles area, the Rams had to have their home playoff game moved to Arizona where the Cardinals play. And it was an emotional night, and the Rams had a whole lot to play for, and they came out hungry, and they came out with a vengeance as they embarrassed and took care of their business, beating the Minnesota Vikings. Matthew Stafford, I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. Offensively, the Rams still have it. Kyren Williams is a nice hybrid player. He can do it running the ball, and he can do it catching out of the backfield. Puka Nacua being Puka, catching passes in the midst of traffic, making those tough catches, doing what he needs to do to get the job done for his team. And the Rams defense, Jared Verse, man, you talking about what a season he's had at the defensive line position. Aaron Donald, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greats of all time. But Jared Verse, if everything goes well, he has the potential to be in the same arena as Aaron Donald if it all plays out. But the Los Angeles Rams, they had a lot to play for on an emotional night where people are still going through it in the midst of the ongoing wildfires in the Los Angeles area. And the Rams, they came out prepared, not just playing for a city, but just playing for a large metropolitan area. And Rams fans made the trip to Arizona and show support for their team. And certainly the Rams came out hungry, and they came out on top taking care of the Vikings. And for my last storyline is going to be the Minnesota Vikings. So the Vikings were embarrassed by the Los Angeles Rams in the wild card game, and that leaves so many questions in the offseason for the Vikings. First things first, the quarterback position. Sam Darnold, what an amazing year that he had this year. Unfortunately, he stunk up the joint in the playoff game against the Rams. What do the Vikings do with Sam Darnold? Do they bring him back for maybe 2, maybe 3 more years? Or do they say, you know what, Sam, it was a lot of fun, but we're fully committed to our rookie, J.J. McCarthy? That could happen. That could happen. So let's hypothetically say, I'll give you 2 scenarios. Let's say Sam Darnold returns to the Minnesota Vikings. I believe that the Vikings may give him between a 2 or no more than a 3-year contract. That's what could happen right there. Or another scenario could be Darnold is released and, well, I should say Darnold is not brought back, and J.J. McCarthy is the guy going forward who they drafted this past season. But there are a lot of teams that could use Sam Darnold. I'll give you a couple of them. The Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. Indianapolis, they have a young quarterback with Anthony Richardson. He's a raw talent. He's athletic, but he stays hurt a lot. The Tennessee Titans, they're all over the place. They've experimented with Mason Rudolph. They've also experimented with Will Levis. It's just that quarterback position is just all over the place in Tennessee. Those are 2 teams that have a legitimate shot at landing Sam Darnold. Even if the Vikings don't give him the deal that he's looking for, there are definitely some teams that would be interested in Sam Darnold. And I gave you a couple of them, the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. But the Vikings, they've got a lot to discuss in the offseason, particularly at the quarterback position. And no matter what happens, Sam Darnold had an amazing year this year. And wherever he plays in 2025, he's certainly going to be somebody that's definitely going to be paid attention to. And I think all eyes will be on Sam Darnold no matter where he goes going forward. All right, so that takes care of that. We have some more news to pass along to you. So after 6 seasons as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy and the team, they part ways. So during McCarthy's time with the Cowboys, they won 3 NFC East division titles. They had several playoff appearances. And, you know, McCarthy, I'll say this about McCarthy. there was a lot of anticipation, especially the last several years. Dallas, on paper, talent-wise, I mean, they had it. They just couldn't get it done on the field, or they got it done on the field. But, you know, the Dallas Cowboys is the soap opera that never ends. You've got McCarthy, you've got these talented players, and, of course, you've got Jerry Jones to deal with. And like I said before, the drama just never ends. But, again, after 6 seasons as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy and the team could not agree on a new contract. So McCarthy interviewed with the he interviewed with the Chicago Bears this week. We'll see what happens. Well, I mean, McCarthy, an offensive-minded coach, I think McCarthy would be really good with the Bears. If he is the new Bears head coach, it would be a return to the NFC North. Of course, you know, he coached for like almost a decade and a half with the Green Bay Packers. He was Aaron Rodgers' coach for so many seasons, and, you know, McCarthy knows the division. He's very familiar with it, so we'll see what happens. And he's got a young rising star with Caleb Williams at the quarterback position, so we'll see what happens going forward. And while we stay with the Dallas Cowboys, Deion Sanders, there's reports that Deion would be interested in the Dallas Cowboys head coaching job. Now, you have to remember when Deion got to the college ranks, when he was at Jackson State, and even currently at the University of Colorado, he made it perfectly clear. He was adamant that he would not coach in the NFL. He had no purpose in coaching in the National Football League. Where, as I said before, things change so fast and things change so quickly, and now Deion says there's reports they're saying that Deion would be interested in the job, but things would have to be right for him in order to take the job. Well, the NFL draft is in April. Shedeur Sanders is expected to be in the top 5. Dallas picks later in the draft. There could be all sorts of scenarios that could go down in terms of draft picks. Dallas moving up to get the number 1 pick, or at least getting in the top 5. And it's a strong possibility that could happen. Jerry Jones may make that happen. You know, they're saying that in the past, Jerry Jones has never done contract buyouts, but I think with Deion, with the reports that Deion being interested in the job, I think things would change. And things could change in terms of Dallas moving up in the draft order to draft Shedeur Sanders. And this thing it's not a reality, but it's close to becoming a reality. So let's stay tuned for that and see what happens with Deion Sanders going forward, not just with his future with the University of Colorado, but also with his future with the Dallas Cowboys. And speaking of head coaching jobs, Mike Vrabel, he returns to the team that he played for many seasons. He is the new head coach of the New England Patriots. Vrabel won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots as a linebacker, also was a Pro Bowler, and he had some success as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, taking the Titans to an AFC Championship game. Also, he won Coach of the Year several years ago in 2021. So Vrabel, a defensive guy, he's got experience, and he definitely knows the Patriots organization inside and out. Him and Robert Kraft, the owner of the team, they've maintained a great relationship, and certainly Vrabel could hopefully bring some of that championship pedigree and that coaching experience that he had during his time in Tennessee to bring it to New England. So, again, Mike Vrabel becomes the new head coach of the New England Patriots. And also some news on NFL international games. So the teams have been named for the London games, also the Germany game, and the Brazil game. So the Cleveland Browns, the New York Jets, and the Jacksonville Jaguars will all be playing in this year's London games. The Cleveland, now there's no opponent has been named yet in the Cleveland game, but they will be playing their game in London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. No opponent has been named yet for the New York Jets, but they will also be playing their game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And no opponent has been named yet for the Jacksonville Jaguars game. That game will be at Wembley Stadium. But again, the Cleveland Browns, the New York Jets, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are the opponents that are the teams that will be participating in the London games as a part of the NFL International Series next year. The Germany game in Berlin, the Indianapolis Colts have been named as the home team for the game in Berlin. Now, their opponent has not been named yet, but again, the NFL continued to expand their worldwide audience and their worldwide presence, and the Indianapolis Colts will be the team that will participate in this year's Germany game in Berlin. And then also, too, we have the game in Spain this year. The game will be in Madrid, and the Miami Dolphins will be the home team for the game in Madrid. So, again, the Dolphins, they don't have an opponent, has not been named yet for the game in Spain, but the Miami Dolphins will participate in next year's game in Madrid as part of the NFL International Series. So as I stated earlier, the NFL continuing their international presence, continue to expand that global reach, and certainly the NFL just continue to try to make its mark globally. All right, now it's time to preview divisional weekend in the NFL. The Houston Texans will square off against the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's start off with the Texans. The Texans had a big win over the Los Angeles Chargers in the wild card game. The game was really shaky in the first half, but Houston's defense really clamped down on the Chargers' offense. C.J. Stroud made plays when necessary, and Joe Mixon was running the ball like nobody's business in this contest. So Houston going to be prepared for a tough one. It is going to be a chilly game at Arrowhead Stadium. For the Kansas City Chiefs, they've had plenty of time off. They've had time to relax. They've had time to get their bodies ready. Patrick Mahomes has been hampered by a bad ankle. The ankle, it appears that it's going to hold up for this game against the Chiefs. Anytime January comes around with Kansas City, you know that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, they just light up like a marquee in a downtown area, right? It's not about what happens in September, October, November, and December. It's all about the second season. And in January, that's when Mahomes and Kelce, they go off. And the Chiefs have every reason to light up like a marquee because they're going to get Justin Watson back. And certainly that's big news for them. And, Arrowhead Stadium, one of the loudest environments in the National Football League. Rain, sleet, snow, hail, heat, humidity, frigid temperatures. Chiefs fans will show up and show out in a major way. And if you know about the Texans and the Chiefs, the last time that they played was in late December. It was right before Christmas when the Chiefs won a close game. This was also the game where Tank Dell, out for the season, dislocated his kneecap and also tore his ACL in his left knee. So the Texans, they have familiarity with the Chiefs. They know what Patrick Mahomes and company, they know what they bring to the table. The Chiefs also know what C.J. Stroud and company bring to the table. So this is going to be a matchup where you have Kansas City's offense going up against Houston's tough defense. And this should be a showcase of the quarterbacks with C.J. Stroud and Patrick Mahomes, with the Houston Texans going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. We have the Washington Commanders going up against the Detroit Lions. So for the Commanders, what a magical ride it's been this year. Jaden Daniels most likely will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Terry McLaurin solidifying himself as one of the premier wide receivers in the National Football League. Zach Ertz has found the fountain of youth. The running game has been solid with the combination of Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler. Also, you've got Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez. Olamide Zaccheaus has become very, very good as a nice number two next to Terry McLaurin. Washington's defense, led by Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, has just been a solid, especially continuing in this playoff run. So Washington will continue to try to spread that magic from the DMV against the Detroit Lions. So Detroit got the bye week, time to heal up, time to rest up. So many injuries on that defensive side. And one thing about Detroit, their MO is offense. Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery returning from his injury as well. Also, you've got Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the premier wide receivers in the National Football League. So Detroit, that crowd is going to be rocking in the Motor City. Fans are enjoying this era of Detroit Lions football, not just with Jared Goff and company, but they're being led by that head coach, Dan Campbell. What's not to love about Coach Campbell? He has been a master motivator since he's been the head coach of the Detroit Lions, and it should be a rocking crowd at Ford Field in downtown Detroit with the Washington Commanders going up against the Detroit Lions. The Los Angeles Rams will square off against the Philadelphia Eagles. So for the Rams, coming off an emotional victory over the Minnesota Vikings in the midst of the ongoing wildfires in the Los Angeles area, the Rams dealing with a lot. They dealt with a lot in last week's game, and they're going to be dealing with a lot going into this game against the Eagles. Not just with the wildfires, but also the Rams are going to have to go on the road, and they're going to play outdoors in Philadelphia, where snow is expected in the forecast for this game. And I don't know how Matthew Stafford will get it done in terms of the passing game. I know he had many seasons with the Detroit Lions having to play outdoors and throwing the ball going up against the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers, but it's still, Stafford could probably get it done. I expect a lot of Kyren Williams in this game. Again, as I stated earlier, it's going to be a frigid game, and it's going to be a snow game. So Kyren Williams, I expect a whole lot out of him in this contest against the Eagles. And as for Philadelphia, solid win over the Green Bay Packers. Jalen Hurts played a decent game, but it was all about Saquon Barkley. Saquon did what Saquon does best, running and running hard, hurdling, stiff-arming, downhill running at his best. And I think we're going to get a whole lot of Saquon in this game against the Los Angeles Rams. So Philly, they're outdoors. The weather's frigid. It's going to be a snow game expected. And, boy, the Eagles, a lot of those Eagles fans, Philadelphia, it's an amazing city, and it's certainly an interesting city when it comes to their sports teams. And Eagles fans will yell, kick, and scream in the midst of the cold and the snow at Lincoln Financial Field with the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Baltimore Ravens will square off against the Buffalo Bills. So for Baltimore, dominating performance over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Lamar Jackson just continue to do what Lamar does, right? Getting it done, throwing the ball, and getting it done using his legs as well. Derrick Henry was just insane. Derrick Henry was just running like a man on a mission, just running like somebody with purpose. The Steelers' defense, they had no answer for him. And certainly not just Baltimore, but also the supporting cast like Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman. Those gentlemen really stepped up on the receiving side. Zay Flowers may not be able to go in this game, but Baltimore, for the most part, they've got their weapons ready to go as they go to a tough environment, and that's to take on the Buffalo Bills. So Buffalo had their way with the Denver Broncos. Josh Allen he pulled out all the stops, right? He performed all of the magic tricks to help the Bills beat the Broncos. James Cook, doing what James Cook does best, right? Getting it done, whether it be running the ball or catching the ball. James Cook was very effective. Dalton Kincaid played a very nice game in this contest as well. And this is going to be an interesting matchup because with Ravens and the Bills, it comes down to really the quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. I firmly believe this game will really determine who will win this year's league MVP. Both of these quarterbacks are dynamic, and their skill sets are just off the charts. But this game could determine not just who goes to the AFC Championship, but this game could determine who will win this year's league MVP. Lamar Jackson has said during the week with the media, he says that he's not trying to be Josh's friend. He's coming there to compete. And, you know, Josh Allen, a lot of respect for Lamar Jackson, but Josh, he wants to do what's best for his team, and that's to get to the AFC Championship game. Think about Buffalo, you think about one of the best environments in the National Football League. It's going to be rocking there. It's rocking no matter the weather, no matter the temperature. Fans will be in that number, and fans will be showing up in a major way. I think it's going to be one heck of a game with the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Buffalo Bills. All right, now it's time for my game of the week. My game of the week is going to be the Washington Commanders versus the Detroit Lions. You talk about two franchises that have enjoyed a revival, a renaissance, a rebirth. It would be the Washington Commanders and the Detroit Lions. Let's start off with the Lions for a moment. For almost a decade and a half, the Lions had to endure so many losing seasons. Matthew Stafford, you know, he will be a Hall of Famer, and he will have his jersey number retired in Detroit one day. Stafford, along with Calvin Johnson, they held down the fort for so many seasons in the Motor City. And even in the midst of losing streaks and losing seasons, there was a glimmer of hope during the Stafford and Johnson era. But changed when the trade happened with the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Rams. Stafford goes to L.A. Jared Goff comes to Detroit. Once Goff lands in Detroit, Dan Campbell is the next piece that's added as the head coach. And in such a short amount of time, all of the losing seasons and all of the hardships that Detroit had to face for almost that decade and a half, it turns out that the reversal of fortune took place once Goff and Campbell landed in the Motor City. And on top of that, you draft Jahmyr Gibbs. You also get Amon-Ra St. Brown. You also get Sam Laporta. You also get Jameson Williams. You land David Montgomery in free agency, and also drafting Aiden Hutchinson. Detroit is definitely enjoyed a renaissance and a rebirth and a revival of that franchise. I mean, I would say this is the most noise that the franchise has made since Barry Sanders was a member of that team. And if you know about the Barry Sanders era in Detroit, it was electrifying. And then there was also, as I stated earlier, there was a glimmer of hope during the Stafford and Johnson era. But this is just wonderful to see Detroit enjoy this renaissance that they're experiencing currently. And another team is enjoying a renaissance or a rebirth or a revival of their own, and that's the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels has just been electrifying this year. Fourth quarter comebacks, game-winning drives, not just a strong arm, but an accurate arm. Athletic ability. Jaden Daniels has proven game in and game out that he is really that leader, and he continues to show the strong leadership skills. And it's not just Jaden Daniels, but it's also the head coach, Dan Quinn. Strong consideration for Coach of the Year honors. You've also got the supporting cast, like a Brian Robinson Jr., like a Austin Eckler, like Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Olamide Zaccheaus. Washington is enjoying its own renaissance right now. And I mentioned the quarterback, Jaden Daniels. Quarterbacks in Washington, Joe Theismann, Mark Rippon, Doug Williams, just to name a few. Those gentlemen solidified themselves in that franchise, and Jaden Daniels has the opportunity to solidify himself in terms of where he stands amongst the top of the top, not just in quarterbacks in that franchise, but just players as a whole. And Robert Griffin III had an amazing rookie campaign. Robert Griffin III had one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time in the National Football League. But there's just something different about Jayden. This rookie year is just different with Jayden. Jayden, and no much credit and much love to RG3, but Jayden Daniels is just something special. This rookie year just feels different with the Commanders. And there were moments similar to Detroit where Washington had to deal with its growing pains, the losing seasons. There was a glimmer of hope where you had Jason Campbell as the starting quarterback, and then, of course, the rookie year with RG3, Kirk Cousins. There was a glimmer of hope with him, but Washington, they're enjoying their own renaissance of their own as well, their own revival, so to speak, and both of these teams are deserving of being back in the limelight in the National Football League. And when it all comes down to it, both quarterbacks are going to really have a great game. Jayden Daniels and Jared Goff. The Washington Commanders versus the Detroit Lions. My game of the week. All right, before we get on out of here, I want to give you my picks who I think will win divisional weekend. I like the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Houston Texans. I like the Washington Commanders to beat the Detroit Lions. I like the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Los Angeles Rams. And I like the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Buffalo Bills. So again, my picks are Kansas City, Washington, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. And that's it. And that's going to do it for another exciting edition of the program. And once again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to tune in to the program. Until next time, everybody, I'm Matt Robinson saying so long, you take care, and enjoy the games.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the channel. Remember to click like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.